Da-da-da-da. Hello, everyone. It is time for the noonday show here. How are you doing? Happy Friday to everyone. Invoking favor on everybody. And hey, thank you for stopping by. I think this is going to be an interesting hour on a subject that, well, it's one that I think by the end of this hour, you're going to be as alarmed as the rest of us. Hello to everybody out there. As you can see, my guest, Miss Hali, is live, literally, down in her location where it is hot. Hello, Holly. How are you doing?
Hi, Wayne. It's Haley, by the way.
Haley, excuse me. Good to see you.
That's okay.
How
I'm
are you
good.
doing?
Amazing. Amazing.
Uh, I love that. That's probably the best response that a person could say to another one. How are you doing?
But
Amazing.
everybody asks me, I'm amazing. Everything is awesome.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I just want to thank you for coming on. We have most of these people here as well in the chat room, and just
Yeah.
hello to everybody, all the moderators, and thank you all for stopping by. I'd give you all a shout out, but there's a lot of you here, and we have a really interesting topic. So, Haley, when you wrote me an email, you were talking about the changes that you were seeing. And for disclosure, we'll just say she lives along the Louisiana coast. Would that be accurate?
That's her.
Okay.
That's her.
So we have the general location, and we don't like to give anyone's direct location. But you had wrote me and was telling me that you were seeing changes in uh, the whole area down there. I mean, Louisiana is known primarily because of the swamps, right?
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you
Yeah.
have been seeing changes taking place even in the swamps, right?
It's, not, it's not swampy. But it's just,
Drying
um,
up. And
it's not as humid. The humidity is different. Also, it's not as humid as it normally is.
I had
Or it's
read
not
as
keeping your
well
brain.
that the insect population is changing down there.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
They would know, folks. They would know. That is exactly what I heard. And in fact, up where I live in Colorado, we have seen an absence of flies. I mean, and of course, we're seeing a decrease in the population of the bees. But so, Haley, what I did, I went and put together a PowerPoint presentation because you piqued my curiosity. And so this is your neck of the woods. And I did not realize how extensive, how shall I say it, the Gulf of Mexico is dying, right?
Yes, it really is.
No, that's okay. I mean, what I couldn't accept, and at first, but it's everywhere, and this has been going on for decades, and now the problem has become so large. I understand that the dead zone this year was the size of Massachusetts. That's a big area.
It is.
Have you seen anything directly with, fishermen, people that go out and actually have to make a living fishing from the Gulf of Mexico?
Whenever I run into people that either like the crawfish farmers or the fishermen, strippers and stuff like that, I always have to ask them how the fishing is, and they're not biting. It's not around like they used to be or having slow years or um, they have stories about the fish that they they see them washing up dead. And
Well, I've heard that the shrimping industry has been really affected. I can't help but not think that if there's so much, and this is being caused because of basically no oxygen depletion in the Gulf itself. I just don't see how other marine and the eco chain can even survive in this. And apparently, this is a picture that I thought was very interesting. This is the scale and the scope going from Louisiana all the way down to South Texas. This is the kill zone, the dead zone. I don't know. I had never taken the time to look at this, and this is a serious problem.
yeah, well, see, they're saying that it's coming from the runoff, right, from all the other rivers and all the water coming from up north. But I don't really think so. I think that it's coming from underground. That the methane gas is contributed to it, and also many people don't know that we sit on a fault line, the Baton Rouge fault line. So there's an asphalt volcano involved, I know, and
so Baton Rouge has a fault line. Is that what you said?
Louisiana sits on the fault line.
Amazing. Now, I happen to agree with you on your idea that this is coming from underneath. Before we went live, you were talking, people down at your local marina, methane gas. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Tell.
And really, it's not just, you can tell in the water because of, it starts with just trickles of bubbles. And then you'll have little groups of baby fish that are they're normally hiding, right? But they're at the very top of the water trying to breathe, having to breathe on the outside of the water because of whatever is coming up. And it stinks. It stinks really bad.
So going back in history, we all know Mark Wahlberg and his movie of the Horizon disaster. I can't help but not think, we don't know how many billions of barrels of oil is down there, but apparently it's sitting in a zone. They did not disperse it like they said. What's your thoughts on that? Are you still seeing the effects of that?
I really think that it would have been amping up anyways. I'm sure it contributed a lot to it, but it was happening anyways, and it possibly could have been just giving it a reason instead of the real reason,
Well, and it's just showing on our slide here that I was blown away. These dead zones, these depletion zones of the oceans in the Gulf of Mexico, this is a serious problem.
I mean, they're all around the coast.
Yes, that's exactly what they're showing. And you live very close to, the Gulf, right?
Oh yeah, 30 miles off of it.
30 miles. Well, you're about as close as, that's amazing. Now, you were saying something that I thought was very interesting, that the humidity level in your area is lesser. Did I hear you correct?
Correct. And it's not necessarily the air where you notice it so much because you're sweating anyways, but the dirt, the soil is it reminds me of moon dust. It's just almost immediately dry as soon as it rains.
And you had noticed last November underground fires, right? Where there's supposed to be swamps.
Correct.
That is a little bit alarming. I'm just saying. I mean,
well, what's alarming to me is the fact that our slab is bowing up. Our concrete slab. I mean, you can knock on it in certain spots and it's hollow, but it's literally pushing the cement up. It's pushing the roads up. They can't repair the roads fast enough.
So we're
I don't
talking,
see the sign anymore.
the ground is disappearing underneath. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's falling. It is falling in places, and then in some places it's coming up.
Well, that's a sign of some serious energy taking place. Wow. Well, as I went to look on this, Hali, I began to see this is everywhere. It seems like we are into something that they've got this thing now, I found, and thank you for pointing me in that direction that I looked at this. So we've got this thing off of the West Coast called the Blob. And this blob, gentlemen, is warm water, hot water, compared to what it should be. And it's growing, it's increasing, it's changing the currents. And as you can begin to see, these dead zones that are happening on the coast is actually having an impact on the ocean itself. Now, Hali, this is the one thing I found there's a recent, how this blob is growing. Now, this is the one thing I thought was very interesting when you and I were talking. Folks, I don't know if you know what this is, but if you live near the ocean, these are what they call the boxer jellyfish. It's the most poisonous, venomous sea creature in there. And folks, it's invading not only the Gulf of Mexico, where it was never seen before, Hawaii, along the West Coast, and it's showing up now on the East Coast. And you get stung by this, well, it's going to be a very bad day. So the other thing I found out, Hali, is the explosion, and they actually said this is what it was, of jellyfish in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, I'm more used to the man of war. I don't believe
yes.
We're going here yet.
Do you go out in the ocean, out in the Gulf?
Not as much as I'd like to. I prefer the Pacific Ocean myself. My daddy lives in Hawaii, and that's where we grew up.
Oh, okay.
So I love the smell of the ocean. That's what makes me homesick. Like going to the Gulf, I like to ride the ferry across to show the boys the dolphins and stuff like that. But
does the Gulf of Mexico have a smell?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It's not as crisp as the Atlantic or the Pacific, but
it does. Very interesting. Hey, everyone! There's people in here talking. So, me and the way I always work on this thing, I didn't realize when you were talking about what's happening here, folks. There's just article after article of the changing of your area. I just, this is an alarming. Does your family work in the fishing industry or in the oil industry or any of those that are associated in the Gulf?
If they do, I don't really speak with much of my family.
Okay.
Often, so I'm not able to inquire.
Well, I was just curious on that. So one last thing, I thought this was interesting, totally off the topic with what we're talking about here. But folks, Japan is, they have millions and millions of metric gallons of contaminated radioactive water from Fukushima. So they've decided now, well, we can't bury it, so we're just going to dump it into the ocean. Isn't that fine? And this was the article I actually found on this, is that when the boxer jellyfish was found inside the Gulf of Mexico, I said, well, this is a problem that is going to impact people. I used to surf. I lived in Houston, and I would go down all the time, Port Aransas, all the way down to Port Isabel, and we were like you. We saw the man o' wars, is what we call them, and never was a
Well, I
problem.
just thought about what's that movie with Will Smith, 7 Pounds. He chose to use a box of jellyfish to stop his heart, to be able to.
Yes, yes. Interesting. So it's obviously a thing that's going on. Now you have other observations as well, right? Now, folks, she is a mother, and children are going to be what they are going to be.
He's high-dying, and he's got my shin.
Of course, you're on the phone, and so that is like go signal, like mom needs to be distracted.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Don't let me have a conversation.
Well, actually, I was going to give you the conversation. I was curious on, what is your thoughts as to what's taking place down there?
Honestly, I don't know.
That's
I've
an
gone
honest
from
answer.
thinking we were going to an extremely slow landslide to maybe it was opening up into a giant sinkhole to the volcano activating underneath us. Seems that everything's going on like that around the rest of the planet. Why wouldn't it go on over here?
Well,
you don't talk about the volcanoes in the United States other than the one in Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
That major volcano.
Well, I mean,
all those volcanoes feed into somewhere,
Well, I don't think a lot of people realize, folks, this is not as far-fetched. So when I moved from Austin, Texas, up here to Colorado, I drove up. It was a beautiful drive. And in the southwest part of New Mexico, there are cinder volcanoes. Cinder cones is what they call them. These are old volcanoes that still exist out there. In fact, when we talk about volcanoes, a lot of people don't understand that the Gulf of Mexico was a result of a asteroid with a think right there around the Yucatan Peninsula. The sand, and you have the sand. What is it? The Merid up there in Missouri. The Merid. What is it? The fault line.
The fault line.
Yeah, it's the San Mad. The name escapes me. It's close.
The New Madrid.
New Madrid. Thank you. Yes. Louisiana, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, was impacted by that. So I had not thought about that type of tectonic movement underneath that area. But go ahead, hon.
There's a lot of people experiencing motion sickness.
New Madrid. People, we got good fact checkers here.
Google is a blessing. It really is sometimes.
Yes, it is. And, I don't think that this is far-fetched in reality. I mean, there are plans, according to the Navy. In fact, I have a whole video I did on this, that when we anticipate the poles to flip, and they are in the process of reversing, your whole area is going to literally sink. Did you know that?
Yeah, I don't. I did, but I don't. That doesn't resonate with me. I don't believe that.
What do you see?
I kind of feel like the people that are the lowest are gonna rise up, just like in ancient Egypt, whenever they were chasing the slaves. If there was chasing the slaves, it was the marsh people that lived.
Okay, so you see the opposite of actually it becoming more of an upheaval.
Correct. Yeah.
Well,
so I'm looking for that video on one day.
That's okay. This is interesting. Let's see. Someone's asking about. I'm trying to read in the chat room here as if they had any questions. I know the audio gets a little.
That would be interesting.
What's that?
Or if they have any observations, like with the wildlife, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I'm used to seeing hummingbirds all the time. I saw hummingbirds this year in December for about 2 weeks. And then literally a week or two ago, I heard them twice, and that was it. But normally I have a bottle brush tree in my backyard, and they're attracted to those red flowers. And we have not had any.
Wow.
We've had.
Have you seen any of the influx of the pythons? The large boa constrictors?
No, my friend showed me a photo yesterday. She was like, "What would you do, Haley?" And I was like, there was a albino python crawling up somebody's cabinet in the kitchen. And I was like, man, I'd be so excited. I miss having reptiles all the time. I'm a big reptile fanatic. And
I think they're coming to you. I really do. I read an article.
I think that they are.
Yeah, I think they're already there. And in fact, these constrictors, they've decimated the Florida ecosystem. They've moved up now, and they're in your area. You're also seeing, what is it, the nutria? Isn't it a big rat that has taken over down there as well?
We've had nutria here forever. I really hope I didn't just lose you.
No, we can see your picture is froze, but we can hear you. There you are.
It unfroze. That was a horrible picture to have frozen. But the nutria have been around here. It's like armadillos they're getting really brave here lately.
Are they?
Oh, yeah.
I had some stories
up in the yard and.
Okay, that's a little unusual. Coming from Texas,
I think they've always kind of liked me though, because I had like a herd of little baby ones run up to me one time, and they just had to smell my feet, and they're like pushing each other, and I went to go try to pick one up by its tail, and then they like jumped, and there was like 6 or 7 of them. It was really cool.
Yeah, they're very interesting creatures, no doubt. When you talk about strangeness of the animals, we're seeing it up here in Colorado. We're seeing more and more attacks of mountain lions. Of course, this time of the year, the bears begin to put on the fat. But getting back to your area, so the volcano idea is very interesting, because I think there may be more to this than I had even realized. I think you may be onto something.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't find this. Our understanding of the inner Earth is, well, we don't understand it. That's the thing.
Yeah, we don't understand anything, really.
There is a theory that's called sudden tectonic shift. And it's a theory that says that tectonic plates do not necessarily take long periods of time in which to move. There is a theory that since we literally are floating on a sea of magma, that there can be huge disruptions in the Earth near the inner core that causes the continents to shift very quickly. And we don't know.
Dr. Albers that said that the magma it's plasma, correct? Plasma is a form of electricity. So if we have all this other stuff going on the outside of us and around us, certainly it's affecting the plasma within.
Yeah, and that is going to be represented by the shifting of your observation. That's all right. That's a mom's look that says, "All right, got you once now."
Make you count to 3.
Yeah, that's right. Don't let me count to 3.
He'll start counting with me.
Hey, Lois, how are you doing? It's so good to see you, dear. Hello, Robert. That's all right. I because this is life, folks. This is what we're all about. This is not about, putting up that, gee, my child is I wasn't a perfect child.
I just read Lost in Space was saying that in Sierra's wildlife seems to be just fine. The trees up there seem to be dying. That reminds me of what I was telling you earlier about how our trees over here are dry rotting.
Dry rotting?
Right? I mean, you can just go out there and break them. They look like they're alive, but they're just so dry. The moisture is being sucked out of the soil somehow. Like, it's ridiculous. But I don't remember when exactly it was. I took pictures of it and everything, and it led me to what was that gas? The methane gas, methane release, because it happened in Hawaii whenever their volcano.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
The leaves fall off the trees, right? Well, I have a live oak in my front yard, and all the leaves fell off of the tree, right? And it's not happening. There's like an orchard of live oaks to the north of me. It's not everywhere it's happening. It's just in certain spots. But there's planes that fly overhead all the time. Like, I wave to them and stuff like that. Like, I know I hear you. Like, they're observing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just here recently, I was like, well, they're probably surveying the land for holes or for vents, or at night, they say it's the plants that are burning off stuff. They're building all these new plants out here. They have, I don't know, it's rocket fuel or whatever my stepdad used to help make rocket fuel. But there's these clouds that are always, ooh, he just knocked my phone out of my hand. You better stop.
It's 2.
But these clouds are always in the same spot. It's really weird.
I used to have a client oceaneering that was down in Houma, Louisiana. It was one of the most interesting drives from New Orleans down, because you're literally driving through the swamps. And I remember this was back in the late 90s. That I was talking to some of the engineers down there, because they make the deep submersible vehicles, that they were beginning to see what they called subsidence flows in that area.
What do they call it?
Subsidence flows. In other words,
I've not heard that.
Yeah, it's literally the land is being over inundated by the water, and which says that if you have an inundation of water one place, it's going to have to be able to show up in another. I'd be curious to go back and talk to someone. I'm sure I don't know if those engineers are even there anymore, but you're really bringing out some interesting observations, Haley. You really are. It's something that I'm going to look into more and more, because who knows? This could be very well a precursor to something yet to happen. When you start seeing vegetation, trees dying, lack of moisture, that tells me that something is taking place under the ground.
Correct.
Yeah.
And where's the news on it, or this is how you prepare yourself for in case this happens? Even,
I don't think
we're all preparing for hurricanes and such, but it kind of seems like it's going to be such a big event that there's no preparedness needed, maybe,
Well, I don't know. There's two ways of looking at things. I wish that that our government is as prepared as we like to think they are. I haven't ever found that to be the case, but that's just me.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I live up here close enough to uh, Yellowstone that if that caldera ever goes off, um, Lynn and I have already figured, we're gonna just make our exit out because there's nowhere to run. And I often
Right.
think about if your area was hit by an earthquake, that would be, I think, number one, a huge shock to the residents there. Uh, but imagine what that's indicating. If there's that type of seismic activity happening again underneath the ground that we're not being aware of.
I mean, the street signs, I can see a telephone pole down the road from my house right now. People say it's from the hurricanes, the wind's blowing them over, but that was years ago, they are leaning to a certain degree like this. My stop sign at the end of my road is leaning, and it's not from, a car hitting it or, like that. It's from the earth. It's moving. Perfect.
Wow.
Rings around all of these different things from the movement of it is filling everything around the poles,
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not doing that, then it's just they're tying up electric, like big electronic boxes. I don't really know what they are, not transformers or whatever, but they're having to tie them up and keep them from falling underground.
Really? Wow.
Yes,
This is fascinating. It tells me that it's obviously there is something more going on here. When's the last time you've been hit by a hurricane in your area? Hasn't it been a number of years?
there was that most recent one. It was it Barry? Maybe?
What was that? How many years ago was that? Was that this?
That was this year.
This year. Okay. Oh, I completely forgot about that. So did that?
Because it originated up north. It didn't originate from the ocean. That was the thing of it.
It originated. That's interesting, from the north, and well, that shows you that there's a shifting in the pattern. That's really odd. What'd you get out of that? Was it mostly rain, or was it a wind event?
Honestly, it was mostly wind.
Mostly wind?
Yeah, but and it was as if the sun went dark. It wasn't that dark, but it was the same light for a couple of days. It was just really dreary.
Well, there have been many thoughts, since Katrina and a couple of the other ones, but I have read in several different
had to evacuate for Rita.
That they're experimenting with weather modification down there, and have you had a very dry summer down there? Has it been really hot? Okay,
it's been really hot. Yes,
it's already hot.
It's pretty hot. I don't see how people work outside during the daytime.
I don't either.
I don't understand it. And a lot of people, like, tensions are high, because hot-headed people are already that away, and then you get overheated, and it changes people. The heat changes people.
And how about in the evening? I read a report that it doesn't cool off in the evening, does it?
No, actually, my favorite time of day is because right as the sun is going down, whenever you get that beautiful orange sun glow, the last 15 minutes or so, it's pleasant. It's so nice outside, and then that's wrapped. It's nasty outside again as it is during the day, just without the magnifying glass on top of you.
Yeah, David Barry, you're right. The 10 kilometer zone, it's all over the world. And we've seen the swarm, and of course, the big thing that happened last year that they still don't have any answer for was what the hell happened with the seismic wave that went around the world. So that one was pretty interesting.
So what?
It was a seismic wave that went around the complete globe. We have no idea where it originated. We think it originated somewhere off Madagascar, but nevertheless, and it stayed consistent at the 10-kilometer depth. And the thing that was even stranger about it was that it never dissipated. It's saying it held the same frequency around the globe, and seismic waves don't work that way. So there was something going on.
So my thing is didn't they say the Fukushima earthquake, it altered the time, right? The rotation of the world. Colin Scott.
What's that? Do you need to take care of something?
Anyways, no, I got it. It altered the rotation, right? It put it off by so many.
It did. Yeah. Yeah.
So wouldn't that disturbance have done the same thing?
You would have thought that we would have seen that, but we didn't. But your observations are correct. We've seen not only the one that happened in Indonesia, but the Fukushima. All of these literally moved the Earth off more of its axis. So, and I'm going to look in there. I have a family that lives down in Texas, in the Houston area, and they've been telling me that they're seeing changes as well down there.
Well, it's like whenever it rains, you asked if it's the weather, right? It rains, and when it rains, it pours, and the water is flooding so bad right now. There's so many cars that get waterlogged, and they just leave them on the side of the road for a while now. But oh my goodness, I almost forgot. At night, in 2 different areas I've seen, there is water that runs on one side of the street as if it was drain off, right? But it's like this water's coming from nowhere. And the other night, whenever I seen it, like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I was riding my bike, and it started off as a little stream, and then as I got to Friend Lake Road, it was huge. It was like a torrent, but all the water had already, dissipated. It was already gone from the rain earlier that day. It's kind of like they were releasing fire hydrants, but there were no fire hydrants.
Interesting. As you were talking back, I started a book called The Start, and in one of my chapters, speaking of your area, it's very interesting. I had completely forgotten about this, but in the book, there was a 9.1 earthquake that took place right there in your area in the upper Texas Gulf Coast. And what it did was that it began the liquefaction of the soil, and huge areas of that whole area, because it's heavily, the thing that always concerns me about where you live and then going down into, up in the Orange, Beaumont area of Texas is all the chemical plants. Do you have a lot of them around your area?
Yes, sir. That's they're always burning stuff. They do burn off. They have big old, it looks like shields around these huge torches. It's almost what it's like. And they burn it off nightly.
So
what it looks like is huge clouds. It's just,
it's coming from the chemical plants, huh?
Right. They're doing it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's exactly what we want. And therein lies the problem. I mean, And I don't think most people who've never been down in that part of the region, folks, literally, if you drive starting from, I'd say, Corpus Christi, go up around the Texas Gulf Coast over into Louisiana, it's heavily populated with chemical petrol plants converting fuel, etc. So I have a question, Haley. How is the water there? How's your drinking water?
I don't drink faucet water. I just have a thing about it.
I don't
I run it, smells like bleach.
Smells like bleach. You know, when I lived in Nashville, it smelled like bleach, chlorine.
But whenever you get to the country, you have they are drawing off the wells, and it smells like rotten eggs.
Smells like what?
It smells like rotten eggs.
Yeah, well, that's always pleasant to put up to your nose.
I mean, but it's the softest water. It's really nice. It's nice water, but it just stinks.
Yeah. I often wonder about that. I keep thinking about, the groundwater, and I'm one of these people who believe that the vast majority of the groundwater in our country, and dare I say the world, is probably already contaminated.
Correct.
So someone says it also could smell like sulfur as well. Well, that's not a good sign if you think about it. Someone said the Cincinnati water tastes. Go ahead, hon.
That's where most of the plants are located here is in sulfur.
Wow. I mean, and I'm sure you have to smell that as well. I mean, the fumes, the byproducts of that, if the wind blows the right way, right?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. It's not pleasant.
It's not pleasant. I bet it's not pleasant. Al, you've been there. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And the numerous paper mills. Yeah. There's one outside Jacksonville, Florida that, oh man. You smell for miles.
We're finding family from there. We keep finding out that we have family, and me and my husband have, my brother lives in Jacksonville, but I just found out I had at 18, and then he just found his biological father, and he lives in Jacksonville, and
Duval County.
And stuff related. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the largest counties I've ever seen. It just seems to go forever and ever. But yeah. Well, Hali, I know that you have things there, and I don't want to hold you up on this. So as we begin to look at this, I think that your hypothesis is worthy enough to really look into. I'd be curious to see if the temperature underneath the Gulf of Mexico has increased.
Yeah, the ground. Okay, so we have it's called 52 that runs under the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a brain fart.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
But there's so much heat coming up out of my driveway.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
I'd love to have you have a thermal reader and begin to take, thermal readings on, they were having the same phenomena. Go ahead, hon.
I've been trying to look up how to get my own seismograph. I'd like to measure that because I can feel it. I can feel the vibrations. The echoes have changed on the interstate. They're not the same as whenever I was younger. They're loud. It's loud. It's almost like we're in a cave sometimes, I was telling you.
Mm-hmm.
And a thermal reader would be amazing.
Yeah, that Well, they're having the problem over in India with that. It hasn't abated, and when you start having fires right near the surface, that if you start seeing that, then it might be a good idea
That happened in India, you said?
Yeah. It's still happening, and just literally with the ground, and they don't know where it came from, and it's showing up in vast regions of there, literally fires coming up under the ground. So this is a real
I don't know how to pull
phenomenon.
up that video of the interstate fire that I had reported. That it was December 10th.
Of
2018.
Okay, I'll look at that. And Haley, I have your link. I'll put that in the description box so people can go over to, you do have a YouTube channel, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You want to tell people about it?
Just random observations.
They're best kind.
Stuff that I noticed, and that other people take as, or people close to me don't really care too much about, because apparently I care too much about this stuff, and I don't.
It freaks them out. If it makes them afraid. Yeah.
Not that they would ever admit it.
Oh, are you kidding me?
No.
Open another beer and I'll tell you. It's true.
Pretty much.
Listen, I could tell you a story of my adventure into Louisiana in my past. Yeah.
If you ever come back, you should holler at me.
Yeah. Well, that one was way back when. I knew some Cajun guys. They were crazy, man. They were crazy. And they invited me up to their part of the country, just right outside Baton Rouge. And oh my. I'll tell you this story off the air sometime.
I would like to get in touch with the Indians around here.
Are there Native Americans there in that area? Well, thank you, Cosmic Convergence. Thank you, Brian.
There are.
We
apparently have Native American blood in us, which is, I was just on to the Grand Canyon and how they found that tomb with Egyptians, basically Egyptians in it. The Hopi prophecy and all that stuff is all interrelated.
Mm-hmm. And I was trying to think, the native people there, isn't it Creole? Isn't it Creole Indians?
Yep.
I think it is. If I am correct, like I said, I used to do a lot of partying in
Asian Creoles.
Yes, and I I know some things about the swamp, and that was the first time, I'll share a story with everyone, that I ever saw what they called their practice of voodoo, swamp magic, and it made a believer out of me.
It's powerful stuff, man.
It's powerful stuff. There are spirits down there in those swamps that they're ancient. Had this one woman, she freaked the crap out of me. But she was saying some stuff, but what she says, I'm having a flashback on here, but as she said, there are spirits here that are older than man himself.
I'm one of them.
Well, and she could conjure. And there's powerful magic down there in those swamps, folks. And
there's something here, because there's a lot of activity here, military-wise. You don't see them because they're just civilian, but I mean, you can tell whenever there's surveillance and stuff all over the city. It's not just in one area in particular. They're not after one person in particular. They're observing, and I would love to know what they're waiting for.
I think that they're waiting. There are rumors that in that area between East Texas, going up through Beaumont, heading into the lower part of Louisiana below Shreveport, that there's stories that there is, bases down there that people have no idea about. Why? Because no one goes to the freaking swamp.
Exactly. What's down here? Oh, there's nothing. There's just swamp. You can't build underground stuff down there because of the water table, the aquifer. It would fill up with water. No, that's not the case. There's so many abandoned crap around here that, I mean, the houses, the vast majority of the houses are empty.
Yeah. And here's the thing,
buildings,
they're building
the buildings. Mm-hmm. The buildings that are abandoned and have stayed abandoned and have been for sale forever, and there's no reason that a corner store from the interstate, that's prime location. That's where you want to locate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't they sell it and have anything there? It's just abandoned this whole time.
They don't want people there.
No, they don't.
Listen, I contend, Haley, that here's the thing. Area 51 is a distraction. I mean, you think about it, no one goes to the swamp. Nobody, folks. And the people that live there, such as yourself.
Your attention elsewhere.
Exactly. And I have found that people that live in that part of the country, they're hardy souls. And they have to be. I mean, it's conditions that I wouldn't enjoy, but yeah. Well, my dear, this hour has just about come and gone. And now you've really got, I'll guarantee you that we'll start pulling more on this. I forgot, Lois, you live there in Louisiana as well. There's a number of people. I know, others that I'm thinking about.
My soul tribe,
mm-hmm.
I'm finding them every so often right now. Well, in my neighborhood, I've found 5 people that they have that certain light. They're just like me, but their mindset's not the same. They're still figuring it out, right?
Well, let me ask you something.
I don't know it's such a small world. It's ridiculously small how everybody knows each other in my life, that have nothing to do with anything or anybody, but then there's that one relationship or whatever. It ties everybody together. It's weird.
Yeah. It's happening more and more. I'm telling you, and I think there's a reason for that. The people in your area, how are they? Are they just generally, are they awake? Or is it like the rest of the area? It's, it's going on with what they call everyday living.
It's like they're hypnotized. They don't realize anything's going on. They think that it's normal. Oh, Haley, it's normal to have triple shadows, that are divided. You have your darkest one, and you have your lightest, darkest one, and then you have your regular shadow.
Does that happen often down there?
Yeah. Well, to me.
That's interesting.
And I'm of the opinion that we're of a trinary system, not a binary. But
listen, let's just, as a philosopher, I would expound on that and saying, well, everyone looks for the Trinity, and the Trinity.
I don't see why it wouldn't be that way.
Well, it says that as above, so below, so as the heavens. I mean, it would work that way as well.
It's funny at a certain point in the evening, whenever you catch a shadow a certain way, our profile, our bodies, we look like we have a tail, like we have a lizard tail.
The reptilians.
Yes.
How weird. I'm seeing, how can that happen? Are y'all seeing the same thing I'm seeing in her shadow? Stay where you are. There is a double reflection of you, and it's actually concave, actually tilted to the left at about 45 degrees. Very interesting. It's yeah. That's where it is. Yeah.
my screen's broken right there in front of the
Oh, well,
camera.
no, I was going to say it's an interesting effect. It's, I like it. That could be
Right?
really a good
I
effect.
really, look, Wayne, I really wanted to show you some cool stuff that I do with lights and crystals and stuff like that, because you can mess with the water, you know, and it's like you're touching, I don't know, it's like it's alive on the surface. It's really weird. It's really pretty though.
Can you pull that up on your phone?
I've been trying
Yeah,
to,
yeah. Send me that file and we'll put it up and have you back on and you can give a commentary.
I would love to. I've been waiting to come on for so long, and I was like so stoked that you asked.
Oh, well,
Yep.
listen, I love it. This is the
I want to
community.
share what I see.
Yeah.
Nobody cares around here, but
We care.
I know. I love that.
Couple hundred of your best friends right here.
They are. They are so
I mean,
sweet.
and what I like about it, you know, it's not like going into a bar, you know, this is like, you know, meeting out in nature, you know, it's just like, maybe we'll have to do that, folks. I know, Al, you have talked about it, and David, and there's others. Maybe we'll pull something together. I mean, because our audience is all over the world, but hey, maybe we can get something going on. I'll get you involved. So do that. Send that to me, and I'll have you back on here in a couple of weeks, and we'll talk about it. I'd love to see what you're seeing.
Awesome. Thank you.
You know, we're finding that we've got to pull our abilities and talents together, and the only way that we can do that is when we see. And I know you've taken the time to do that.
Yeah, my intuition's definitely been on point. I didn't even mean to, like, whenever I emailed you back on the Sounds Like a Plan for the link, it was at 11:11, catching it all the time, and the 222s and my favorite number and my birthday, and my birthday is really special.
We'll do this, Hali. We'll do this. You send it to me and we'll get it into the schedule.
All right.
All right. All right, folks. Thank you, everyone. This hour has gone by quick, you know, and listen, I just commend you. Hali, you're a remarkable soul, and I'm honored that you're a part of this community.
I'm honored to be part of this community, and thank you so much.
Well, all right, my dear. We'll see you. I'll talk to you. I'll send you an email. All right. Okay. All right. Bye-bye. Okay.